in the world of diabetes and just in health in general. Everybody thinks they're an expert just for having it. So one of them, and this one's one of my favorites because this one still gets pushed all the time, but if your A1C is under 7, you are fine. And this one, man, this one just bugs me because you go to your endo, oh yeah, your A1C is 6.8, you're doing great. But remember, A1C is a marker of roughly your control over the past 3 months, most heavily weighted to the most recent month, and does not take into account your glucose variability. So this is why, everyone's, oh, A1C. Don't get me wrong. I love A1C as a marker, but not by itself because of this exact reason, because you could have 250 and 50 average to 150, and suddenly your A1C, air quote, is 6.9. It's 6.8. Oh, you're doing amazing. But the reality is you're constantly ping-ponging up and down. That doesn't help anybody. You could have, oh my goodness, my blood sugar went super, super, super high, and then it went super, super low, and it's averaging out okay. And that's not really control. That's not control that you want to be having. Welcome to the Your Diabetes Insider podcast, where we take all of the mysteries of blood sugar control, focusing on nutrition, exercise, and any of the other 40 plus factors that may impact your blood sugar. If you don't know me, my name is Ben Zeal. I'm a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, strength and conditioning coach, and I've lived myself with type 1 diabetes for over 20 years. And I am here to share everything that I have learned in both my personal and professional experience so you can live that incredible diabetes life. So get ready and let's dive right into today's episode. What is going on? Welcome to this episode of the Your Diabetes Insider podcast, where today we're going to have a little bit of fun. And we usually have fun around here, but we're going to have extra fun because I'm going to go through a bunch of the misinformation, the myths, the crazy things that you see on social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, wherever, and ideally put them to rest and give you some better insight as to what to actually think about some of these things instead. Because ultimately, there's so much information out there in the world of diabetes and just in health in general. Everybody thinks they're an expert just for having it. And so I want to be able to help you determine what's BS, what's cap, as the children say these days, and what's, actually legit info. So I have a few of them written down, but one of them, and this one's one of my favorites because this one still gets pushed all the time. I at least twice a week have this conversation with, people, whether it's in the DMs or calls or whatever, but if your A1C is under 7, you are fine. And this one, man, this one just bugs me because you go to your endo, oh yeah, your A1C is 6.8, you're doing great. But remember, A1C is a marker of roughly your control over the past 3 months, most heavily weighted to the most recent month, and does not take into account your glucose variability. So this is why, everyone's, oh, A1C. Don't get me wrong. I love A1C as a marker, but not by itself because of this exact reason, because you could have 250 and 50 average to 150, and suddenly your A1C, air quote, is 6.9. It's 6.8. Oh, you're doing amazing. But the reality is you're constantly ping-ponging up and down. That doesn't help anybody. You could have, oh my goodness, my blood sugar went super, super high, and then it went super, super low, and it's averaging out okay. And that's not really control. That's not control that you want to be having. Ideally, you're using A1C in conjunction with time and range. Because also you could argue time and range could be a liar as well. Because think about it. If you set your time and range, the default, I think, is 70 to 180. You set it to 70 to 180, and your blood sugar sits at 165 for 12 hours. Technically, you were in range the whole time. Do you want to be sitting at 165? No. But you were in range in the eyes of the CGM. So some of the numbers, there's a book I remember reading, and this is related, but it was way back. I think I was like a sophomore in college, and we had to read it in the statistics class. And it was literally like how to lie using statistics. And you can do a lot of stuff with numbers to make them seem like they're better than they are. But I think the key with this is you have to combine A1C and you have to combine time and range. That is the takeaway here. You have to combine both. You can't just look at one and say, oh, A1C is 5.6. I'm doing great. Yeah, if you're bouncing, it doesn't matter. If you're low all the time, it doesn't matter. Lows chronically can be just as much of a problem as highs chronically, the research continues to show. So keep that part in mind where it's okay. If your doc says, oh, your A1C is 6.8, you're great. If your time in range is, 80 plus percent, you probably are doing pretty solid. But if your time in range is 62% and you're constantly bouncing, it might not completely tell the full story. And you may want to push your doc or your care team to dig a little bit deeper into your numbers. And if you need a care team that will do that, hi, we're here. My team and I are here to help. So that's one of them. Another one, oh, this is going to be fun. This is one of my other favorites. And this one, you should know the reality of this one. But again, this is a very polarizing topic. You always will see it on social media. oh, the best way for diabetes is fill in the blank way of eating. And typically it's, let me get rid of my carbs. Let me just go carnivore. Let me go keto. No carbs means no blood sugar excursion. And I mean, arguably the thought process is correct. But what I'll also tell you on the flip side, and, just for fun, right? People that are low carb, oftentimes you need to have your calories coming from somewhere. It's going to be protein, which is fine, but also it's going to be fat. Well, what does fat do? Fat can induce insulin resistance. And we've talked about it on this channel. We've talked about it on social media, all over the place. It is very well documented that fat can induce insulin resistance and fat delays digestion, which can lead to high blood sugars later on. So, hey, I'm going to get rid of all of my carbs, but I'm going to have a ton of fat and a ton of protein. Well, that protein is no longer guarded by the carb because the carbs spare the protein. So that protein will get broken down into glucose. So you effectively just backdoored what you were avoiding. And then if you have a substantial quantity of fat, that fat is going to say, hey, what's up? Let's delay digestion. Let's induce insulin resistance. This will be fun. And I have seen it many times in my experience professionally. I've also seen it personally, because once upon a time, like 10 plus years ago, I decided to go low carb because I thought, as a future dietitian of America, it's probably important to know what it's like to be low carb. So I did it 2 different times in my life for like 18 months each time. During that time, I would have tons of insulin resistance. I'd be sitting at like 152, would not come down. Could dose, do whatever. I didn't understand how to, deal with fat at the time. But at the same time, I knew that there was insulin resistance at play. And there were times where I would just sit at 152, 158, 160, 145, and would not go down into range despite being lower carb. So lower carb is not going to inherently be better. It always comes down to the person operating the system, right? The person who's running the show, consuming the food, what you're doing to, from an insulin standpoint, medication standpoint, et cetera. Low carb is not going to just magically save everything. If it did, we would all be doing it. But the thing is, it doesn't. I wish it did. I wish it was a lot easier. But the same thing, carnivore, oh, it's the most amazing thing. Works great for some people. Have some patients that do amazing on carnivore. But on the flip side, most people can't stick to it. So it doesn't matter. Because if you're like, oh, I'm going to kind of do it and 1 foot in, 1 foot out, it's not going to end well for you. You end up really insulin resistant and disappointed because you want to eat carbs and you technically feel like you can't have them. So it always comes down to, did you carb count / protein and fat count correctly? Did you dose correctly or, administer your meds correctly? And just be smart with the choices. It doesn't have to be some super extreme way of eating that's going to be the best way to do it. Another thing, these are just more myths, and this is related to the other one, and this one drives me crazy. Fruit is terrible, or any of those lists for that matter that's like, don't eat these foods if you live with diabetes. And it's always like the same 5 things. It's don't eat rice, don't eat pasta, don't eat bread, don't eat fruit, don't eat fill in the blank super sugary thing that obviously will raise your blood sugar quickly. Here's the thing, and I'm not out here advocating that you should, just eat loads of white rice and love your life, right? But at the same time, if you want the occasional sushi roll, you want to occasionally go get some, some Japanese food with your friend, or you want to, just have some rice with your dinner, it's not a problem. It's just more so saying, okay, what adjustment do I need to make to be able to have this without my blood sugar going to the moon? So think about it, right? White rice theoretically should raise your blood sugar faster than brown rice. Depends who you ask. But ultimately, white rice is going to spike you quicker. Rice flour, spike you fast. Pasta, depends on the pasta. But regardless, all of these carb sources, what they're likely going to just take is a little bit smarter with the dosing, potentially a little bit earlier on the dosing, really knowing the portion size and saying, okay, I've decided to count this as blank number of carbs using some sort of reference source, dosing appropriately, dosing a little bit early, and monitoring where you're at. It doesn't have to be this rocket science. Oh, you never eat it again. It's the worst thing in the world. Oh my God. Like, I'm not out here, crushing cake and donuts every day, because that would not be responsible of me from a health perspective. But if I wanted to, theoretically, I could. Anybody could. And just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? But on the flip side, it doesn't need to be something that's just completely forbidden, or, oh, if you have diabetes, never eat this food. Yeah, don't eat food if it's, contains poisonous berries or you're allergic to it. But it doesn't have to be guess I can never have this food again because of blank, right? I want you to challenge that thought. If you have those thoughts as of right now, I want you to absolutely challenge that and say, okay, how can I do this in a smart way? It's going to keep my blood sugars in range. I'm going to feel my best. I'm going to be okay with it, accept it, and, ultimately move on with life. That's the important thing with that. Oh boy, more social media fun. This is another great one. Insulin is the problem. Insulin is the devil. No, it's not. Type 1 world, it keeps you alive. You need it. Type 2 world, it keeps you alive. You just may not have to take it. Here's the thing with insulin. Insulin keeps you going. Insulin gets the food into the cell, which allows you to use the food as energy, right? This is the most simplistic way to look at it. You learn that right when you're diagnosed out of the gate. Caveat being, everyone, oh, insulin causes weight gain. Insulin causes weight gain. The doctor said insulin causes weight gain. I started insulin. No. I know I've talked about this before, but insulin and weight gain do not have to go hand in hand. You gain weight when you're first diagnosed and you're put on insulin because you were literally withering away before. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, your body cannot process any of the food that you're putting in it. So it just pisses it out. So you could eat, I don't know, I'm just going to be very obnoxious. You could eat 2,000 calories of food, but your body can't really process much of it. So it's just basically peeing out all that food. So what happens? You lose a ton of weight. So people are like, oh, I lost a bunch of weight. Some people are happy about that because they wanted to lose weight in the first place. Some people don't have the weight to lose. And then they, get super frail and it's not a good situation. Regardless, then when you start insulin, your body is no longer starving. So you're not effectively gaining weight. You're literally just restoring what you lost because your body was literally under one of the biggest stresses it could have been under. And so you're effectively just restoring back to where you were before. So could there be some body fat there? Absolutely. There, of course, probably. But on the flip side, you also probably lost some body fat on the way down, right? Probably lost a little muscle on the way down, probably gained a little muscle on the way up. So don't demonize insulin as the problem. Everyone's, oh, insulin causes the weight gain. If insulin caused the weight gain independently, right? If that were the case, if you have a day of, oh, my site didn't work and I had to take a ton of insulin to bring my blood sugar down, you would gain weight just based off of that. But that doesn't fundamentally happen because you have to have inputs. Insulin can be the mediator. Insulin can be part of the process, but insulin is not going to independently cause the weight gain. If you're in a calorie deficit, you cannot physically gain weight just because of insulin existing. It doesn't work like that. So that's the biggest thing. Insulin is a tool. Insulin keeps you alive if you are dependent on it. If you are not, if you're type 2 and you're on oral meds, you like insulin sensitizing agents, right? Or whether it's injectable, whether it's an oral med, whatever it might be, right? You got a different medication, but it's not insulin. You are then trying to take your body's insulin and make it more powerful and more effective. That doesn't mean that it's a problem. You're just making it, stronger version of what it is. If you're type 1, you're like, okay, I'm on insulin. This is what I got to do. Or you're insulin dependent type 2. This is what I got to do. It's not inherently a bad thing. It's going to keep you in range. That's where you're going to have the best health outcomes. But don't be like, oh my God, it doesn't cause weight gain by itself. I can tell you that, like, prime example, right? And this will just to illustrate it even more. So, I mean, it's early mid-August at this point, right? Maybe it's mid-August. I don't know. Regardless, it's August. Putting it lightly, right? There have been times where, I've been off of my pump now for about 2 months. And there's been times where my blood sugars have been phenomenal. There's been times where my blood sugars are like, what in tarnation just happened? Because I'm on injections. It's a little bit different than normal. And effectively, my control is about the same, right? I'm doing pretty solid, which I'm grateful for, knock on all the wood. But there have been a couple of days where I was super insulin resistant from, not feeling well, being stressed, etc. And I took way more insulin than I normally would. Like when I was on a pump, I was averaging, and this is just me personally, it doesn't really matter for your life, but I would take anywhere from 45 to 60 units in a day, right? Pretty wide range, but that was roughly my range. There were some days on MDI, I was taking 70 units a day just because you had to break through whatever resistance was there. And then of course you got a basal, it doesn't, titrate down, etc. So the moral of the story is that's a lot more insulin than my body's used to. Did I suddenly gain weight? No, I wasn't in a calorie surplus. Nothing happened. It doesn't have to happen, right? So get that big one out of your brain. That thought is just not serving you at all. Does not serve you at all. These ones are just so fun, aren't they? I'm just like, these things are so ridiculous. Then there's, the people that are like, oh, this supplement will help you. Well, first depends on which supplement. Oh, berberine will fix it. Oh, you could take that. Oh, you could take fill in the blank random thing that just seems way out there, but that isn't cinnamon or okra or berberine or any of that. More than likely, and again, done some of these personally, seen these professionally in action. A lot of times when it comes to these, this will help your blood sugar. You're expecting one of two outcomes, right? One of them is probably minimal stuff is going to happen, if anything. You might not notice any result. You start something, and let's just say for fun, cinnamon, because it's easy, low-hanging fruit, right? Literally, but no. Cinnamon, cool, nothing happened. I had some cinnamon-flavored burps. That was fun while it lasted. Nothing effectively is going to happen. Then let's say, you decide, I'm going to do, this one actually I can pull from a real-life experience. I'm going to do cayenne pepper. Legitimately, like the cayenne supplement, like capsaicin or whatever, in a little, capsule. The first 2-3 weeks, you might notice a slight increase in insulin sensitivity. And by slight, maybe you're taking a little bit less, maybe your blood sugars are just a little bit more responsive to your insulin. And maybe, you're running a little bit lower. Your average went from 135 to 128, some marginal amount that's still helpful, but it didn't go crazy in terms of improvement. And then after those 3 weeks, you're like, your body says, I'm used to this thing. Cool. Thanks. That was fun. And then you're right back to square one again because your body's already adapted to it and it's used to it. Your body's very smart. So most of these things, when people are like, oh, I could take, apple cider vinegar, I could take this, that, the other thing, you might get at best a temporary reprieve or a temporary improvement. You might get a temporary reprieve or temporary improvement, and then that's it. It's done. It's over. So keep that in mind from a supplement standpoint. Again, certain things are worth it, right? Like I've talked about collagen before. Collagen for people with diabetes, especially type 1, we're already making 40% less collagen than someone without. Collagen's a really big deal. Taking that regardless, you may or may not see the ROI, but the goal is to not have to worry about seeing it because your tendons and your joints are in a better spot. That would be one example. Vitamin D, people with diabetes tend to be lower in vitamin D. That is, again, not something you're going to just notice it's miraculously different, but it may end up improving immune function. It may end up improving your, body comp, etc. So there are things like that where you're not going to just see it right away, but the people like, oh, I took berberine, I took this or that, or it helped my blood sugar. You may or may not actually see anything. And if you do, if it hangs long-term, please share. I would gladly deep dive into it and take a look and see what can happen. But don't expect these, monstrosity. Oh, I was averaging 275 and I was averaging 275 and now I'm averaging, 130. Like I wouldn't expect that from a supplement. At best, you're looking at, 10, maybe 15 point average improvement and temporarily, most likely. So that was another fun one on the supplement side. I feel like we could probably go with one more. I've got a list of 10 or 11 here. So I'm trying to decide which one that I think would be the best here. But high blood sugar equals must exercise. This one is tough. And this one's very dependent on the situation, right? You hear, oh, your blood sugar's high, make sure you go for a walk, make sure you do something. And there's no problem with going for a walk. I do it all the time. But I think something you have to consider, if your blood sugar is running a little bit on the higher side, you definitely want to consider the type of activity you're about to do and then the intensity of what you're about to do. I would say for this, right? I don't think it's fundamentally wrong that people are saying to exercise. I think it has to be just clarified what kind of exercise. Low intensity, steady state, hey, I'm going to go for a walk. Hey, I'm going to pedal the bike super slow. Hey, I'm going to do something super chill. Go have at it. Don't overdo it, but you should be okay. It's when your blood sugar is, 250 plus and you're like, I'm going to go lift heavy at the gym. Yeah, that's not a good idea. I'm going to go do some sprints. Not a good idea. I'm going to go do something super explosive. Not a good idea. And the reason being because those are the types of things that your liver is going to say, dump a bunch of glucose, give energy now, boom. Well, suddenly your 250 now became 350. And that's a problem because now it's going to be a pain in the butt to come down and you're going to feel like garbage the entire time. And trust me, it's not fun. It's not a situation you ever want to be in where you're like, okay, my blood sugar is high. I want to just have it even potentially go higher. If you're 275 and you're about to lift, I would consider waiting until you're under 250. And of course, 240, 250 is that threshold because 240 is where the ketones can technically start to form in the event that you get dehydrated enough and your blood sugar is running high enough. So you have to be careful around that threshold. If you're under that, you can probably get away with it and be okay. But I also wouldn't be like, oh, you're 230, let's go max out on deadlifts. Like that's probably not going to be a good idea. So keep that part in mind. These were fun. I enjoyed doing this. This was fun, having some myths from social media to just absolutely squash and demolish. And hopefully you got some sort of nugget of awesomeness out of this. But let me know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode. If you're loving the podcast, you're listening on Spotify or listening on Apple, please drop us a 5-star review. We appreciate you. And if you're like, hey, I want a team that gets it, that understands me, that gets my blood sugars, that's going to be able to get me into a position to be absolutely successful, thriving, and not feeling restricted from a condition I didn't ask for, we are here to help. Definitely just message me on social media at ManofZeel, ManofTzeel, or yourdiabetesinsider.com. We are here to help however we can. I appreciate you, and I will catch you in the next episode.
Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey.